Welcome to Road to Redemption, a show sharing powerful life testimonies, giving hope to those on their own road to redemption.
Welcome into Road to Redemption. We're so glad you're with us today. This is a show where we share powerful life testimonies that give hope to people. And here we are so excited to have Mark Noon with us. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, Nate. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to have you here. And, I want to just say a couple quick things about you. You've been married to your wife, Michelle, for 33 years.
We have.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 kids in that time period.
That's awesome, man. And I'm almost 30. I mean, you've almost been married my entire life.
Right?
I'm 35.
I can be your dad, Nate.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, that's so cool. And nowadays you don't see that a whole lot. And so I admire that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're the founder of Leadership 10.
Right. Correct.
And I want to talk about that a lot today, it's a professional services practice focused on leader development and coaching.
Right.
You've written this book, Set Up, which is timeless leadership tips for your success. And it looks like you were in the military for 20 years.
I was 20 and a half years. Yes.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. It's a career. It's considered a career, even though some people get out of the military at 37, 38 years old and they've already had a career and they're able to start a second one. For me, it was a little bit older than that.
20 years. And what branch was?
It was the Air Force.
20 and a half years in the Air Force.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So were you an officer, enlisted?
So I was enlisted for 8.5 years and an officer for 12. So I was able to finish my degree while in the military. And then that enabled me to get a commission as an officer.
Gotcha.
And I finished out my time as an officer and made the rank of major before I retired.
And did you have various duties and roles?
Yeah, so I was in 9 different assignments, 7 different states, a tour overseas. Yeah, lots of places.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
It is.
Well, let's jump right in. Mark, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your journey and... Yeah.
So you already mentioned the military part. I joined when I was 25 years old, so I was a little late getting into the military. I was one of those. Here's my story. I mean, I got saved when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
My wife got saved at 5 years old, so we've never known anything really other than being in the church.
You grew up in a Christian home.
After 11 years old, my parents got saved about the same time I did. We all started attending a church that preached salvation and got saved all at the same time.
Now, is this locally?
This is it. We grew up in Michigan. My wife and I both in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and so. Different towns, but we met each other when we were, she was 19, I guess. I was 23 when we got married. And we grew up in church in that way. And so, we've raised our children in the church. We've had a fantastic Christian life. It really has been now, 45 plus years for me to be being saved, really walking with God. And I say walking with God, not that I always walked that closely, not that I always had this fantastic, relationship, but walked with God. Never walked away from Him.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife, the same.
He may have been up ahead waiting on you a couple times and you're just lagging behind.
Right, and I'm a little slow getting there,
I
sure.
Get you,
yeah. Sometimes I'm walking ahead of him, doing things I shouldn't do, or getting, making decisions I shouldn't make. But, and then when we joined the military, we traveled all over the country. We spent 3 years in Hawaii. We had some really rough assignments.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
I know my kids, they think of Hawaii of kind of where they grew up because they were so small at that time. They know no other place, as home for them. Then we've been now here in Florida for the last 18 years. We got stationed here at the 2 Air Force bases and retired from there and started another career after that.
At least it wasn't like Alaska or something like very like...
Well, what's funny is we were actually headed to Alaska at one point and they diverted us at the last month before we were supposed to go to Alaska. And they said, hey, we got this opening in Hawaii. Would you like to go? Yeah. I'm like, let me think about that for a minute, a second. Yes, let's go.
Alaska's beautiful too, but
it is.
It
is. My youngest was stationed in Alaska, so we got to I have 2 boys in the Air Force, and he got the opportunity to be in Alaska, and we went and visited him there. So it is a beautiful place.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're in the military, and then when you went into an officer, did you feel like, all right, this is my career thing. I'm here for the long haul. or did you? What were you thinking there at that point?
When I first went in the military, it was really because I needed a job. Okay. I had a young son and my wife, a couple of years, and I needed a job. I joined the military, not because I was necessarily patriotic or anything. I just needed a job and became very patriotic, became very focused on military, loved my career. But I had the opportunity to get education. I really went in to get an education as well. And I figured I'd get my education, I'd get out. And all of a sudden, I enjoyed what I was experiencing. I knew it could be a great lifelong career. There were a lot of benefits to being in the military. But I became an officer, and the day I became an officer was really this transition for me. And I thought, there's a lot of things that I can do as an officer that I couldn't do previous to that. And so it opened up a lot of doors for me. And so I stayed in for that next 12 and a half years and really enjoyed it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Becoming an officer though is not an easy thing. You get from enlisted to officer, it's a different world. It really is. At least in the Air Force, it is. In the other branches, I'm told as well. But you become this leadership. You get put in a leadership position, and you're not always ready to be in a leadership position. And that's the biggest lesson I probably learned at that time.
So what does that mean? Like, did you have a lot of guys under you? Like, that you're leading. Are we in a time of like combat? What are we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I literally transitioned from the same career field. So it wasn't like I changed career fields. I just transitioned from an enlisted to an officer within the same spectrum of what I was in, which was healthcare. Worked in the hospital. But the idea of leadership was this: is Friday, literally in the year 2000, July of 2000. I'm on a Friday. I'm an enlisted guy. And I get this commissioning ceremony in the military. You have a ceremony to promote you. And then the next week, Monday, Tuesday, I'm at my new assignment. I'm in my new place, and I'm now an officer. And I say it like this. I said, what was my preparation to be a leader, to be that officer? And really, it was a weekend to think about it. That was it.
Right.
I mean, I had a weekend, and then all of a sudden, I'm in this new position. And it really started this quest for me to really teach leadership at the very earliest stages in people's career so that they don't have to, here's my phrase I use, that they don't have to step up to a leadership role, that they can simply step into a leadership role.
I love that.
And that's a big difference because, it's one thing, you're really good at what you do and you get promoted and you step up to the job and your colleagues say, hey, Nate, you really stepped up today. It was really good. And that's important. But wouldn't it be better that you could step into the role, be really ready to go and hit the ground running? That's been my goal now for the last 25 years.
So you're already implementing some of these ideas that now, you're writing about and teaching about in conferences.
Yeah.
So, but you're already kind of implementing that. You were probably just kind of trying it out, I'm sure, a younger leader.
Oh, absolutely. Trial by fire or error, trial by error, because, I'd read a lot of the books. I read all the John Maxwell books at that time, and they were very inspirational. Still my favorite books to this day. But then putting it into practical use was not always the easiest thing. Sure. And even in the military, we have great leadership schools and we teach people those things, but it's not necessarily the practical. It's more of the book mentality. So here's what you're supposed to do as a leader. You go back to your unit and you try to do that, and it doesn't always work that way. So I found now in the last 10 years of coaching this and really doing leader development is I have to now help people to put that into place practically and not just teach them what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. So do you feel like the leadership principles apply the same everywhere, or is it different in the military than it would be maybe on a church staff than maybe if you were a kindergarten teacher? Like what, obviously you're going to have different approaches. But
Sure. Leadership is leadership. And people ask me that question all the time.
That's what I'm asking. Is it okay?
It is. People are people. That's why leadership is leadership. The difference in the military, of course, is if I'm an officer and you're a guy who works for me, an enlisted guy in the same department, the same organization, I can tell you to do things and you're going to do them because I'm the officer, I'm in charge, right? But leadership is more of getting you to do it because you really want to do it. That's leadership, right? So when you get out, the same emotions are there, the same type of people are there. It's just they don't have the structure that way.
Sure.
And I find a lot of organizations are missing the structure that they need to effectively lead. And so they're leading sort of haphazardly in a lot of ways.
Right.
So that's what the military brought, was that structure to be able to do it. But people are still people.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean that you want to do what I just asked you to do.
Right.
It's that you're doing it because I'm in charge and usually, I got to do this or I'm going to get in trouble. Right. I'd rather lead you to do it because you want to.
Sure.
And it's the right thing to do.
Empower them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. And we talk a lot about that in church because, most of church is a volunteer base.
Yeah.
And so with the worship team, we talk backstage and that's you're talking about an early morning. First of all, you're talking about musicians. Right. All right. I'm one of them. I know, like getting us up early, getting us to show up on time and it's a struggle.
Right.
And so, but you got to get these guys, big group of people to show up on time, ready to learn these songs, ready to rehearse.
Right.
And leadership has been more of less and less of like what I'm doing, what I'm telling them to do. Like be here at this time, and it's more and more of a culture thing, which sounds like what you're talking about, where we shift our mindset to like, I get to do this.
Yes.
And we're here, and now it's not me just desperately trying to get them excited about something. It's more of like they have been empowered, and now they're taking on something as if it was theirs. It's just so much better that way.
It is. It is. We're not having to necessarily tell people what to do. They just want to do it because it's what they've learned to do. It's what we've led them to do. You know, the greatest culture, the greatest environment that you create in an organization is where people want to follow the leader because they have high respect and they have high value and they place high significance in that person.
Sure.
It's not just because they told them to do that. I tell you to be here on time. Okay, you're on time. Is it that I want to be on time because I want to honor the leader or I want to respect the leader? And I want to respect my teammates, and I want to bring honor and respect to my teammates as well. Or because if I don't show up on time, or if I'm not ready, prepared to do that song, or I haven't memorized that song, and everybody else has,
Right.
How am I going to affect the team?
You don't even have to lead them at that point. They're going to feel it. They're going to. I don't ever want to do this again.
Right?
Like, yeah.
They're absolutely going to. And so the leader's role is to instill that accountability too. I think in churches, particularly, because we want to walk in love, and absolutely we want to walk in love. But when Jesus walked in love, he still, turned temple tables. I mean, he upset the Pharisees and the religious leaders. He even told people, hey, you're going to follow me. You're going to follow me like this, or don't follow me. I mean, that's basically the bottom line. And it wasn't this mamby-pamby, I got to be nice to everybody kind of thing. There's accountability in leadership that says, here's the way we do things.
Sure.
And it's the right way, and we're going to hold you accountable to it.
Right.
And I think we miss that, not as Christians as a whole, but certainly within the church.
Right.
We have all these volunteers who come and we got to lead them.
Right.
It's hard because they're not getting paid. They don't have to be here, but yet I have to lead them effectively and hold them the same accountability as I do others.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it comes down to, it's a hard thing. It's when I've been put into a leadership position, I want my team, or especially if there's people under me, to know like, you're not following my vision. I might be called your leader, but I'm following someone else's vision. Maybe Pastor Steve, and maybe whatever maybe if I'm if I'm working at a company, it may be the CEO or whatever.
Sure.
Just like Jesus said, you're right. He did say a lot about following me, but he also said, as I follow my Father. Paul even said, why do you call me a leader? I'm not a leader. I'm a servant. And so it's like flipping the script a little bit. Instead of saying, hey, all you guys follow me, it's like, hey, guys, we're going to follow this guy together, and painting this picture of why we're doing this and getting people excited as opposed to just pointing a finger at them and saying, follow me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Jesus did both things, right? He literally went to Peter and Andrew and said, follow me.
Yeah.
And they just dropped everything and took off, right?
Yeah.
Other ones came and followed him because of who he was, right? You get 5,000 people showing up at the Sermon on the Mount. He didn't go pick all those 5,000 people and say, follow me. He just kind of showed up, and they all were there because they saw something different in him as a leader.
That's good.
Right? But here's the thing is if a leader lacks confidence, the people lack commitment. So if a leader's not confident, they don't show themselves as a strong person, as a strong leader, the people are going to lack commitment to what the vision is.
Okay.
Right. So if I'm confident in the vision and the direction that we're going, and I'm leading you, you're going to have a commitment to that.
And how do you get that confidence?
That's the magic question, right? How do you get that confidence? Right. Yeah. Buy my book and you find it out. No, it's really this is how are we continually learning as leaders? Are we continually growing? I have this conversation with people all the time. I ask them, what are you reading? What are you learning? What are you growing? And they'll tell me all the things that they're doing as a leader. They're not telling me how they're growing themselves as a leader. Because if I'm not growing as a leader,
right?
As a professional speaker, as an executive coach, the things that I do, if I'm not continually learning how to coach better, if I'm not continually learning how to speak better, if I'm not continually learning and growing as a person, staying ahead of what's going on in the business world, I can't effectively lead other people. I can't coach them well. I can't speak well, right? I've got to continually improve myself if I'm going to improve others.
Well, it's that simple, like you're just pouring out time and never being refilled. It's that same concept. It's
right.
like, leaders are readers. Where am I growing?
Yeah.
Otherwise I'm just all the time. Yeah.
Think of Jesus himself, going back to the perfect example of the greatest leader, right? There were times when he just had to get away. He had to go and refresh himself. He had to go and pray, and he had to go and spend time away and just go, okay, leave me alone.
Sure.
I'm going to go over here for a while.
Sure.
And yet people are still following him. Sure. And the disciples are getting in the way, like, okay, let's let him be for a little bit. Let him rest. Let him recoup. Let him regain his strength. Absolutely.
This is powerful, man. So you're going back a little bit to the military. What was the transition out? What did that look like when you're stepping into the civilian world? Was that an easy transition? Was it natural? Were you continuing with some of the things? Were you in healthcare?
Yeah, very difficult transition.
Okay.
I will tell you that it is anybody that tells you that after spending 20 or more years in the military that it's easy. In fact, statistically, they will tell you that 8 years is the kind of the magic number. If you get out of the military prior to 8 years of spending time, the transition is relatively easy, and it gets harder every year after that.
Why? Is it like culture shock?
It's the amount of time and the amount of, I guess, normalization that you bring to what you're doing. This is what I'm told by people, but then I also read the statistics, and it's literally, I remember it. After 8 years, it was like more and more, I was so much a part of what was going on in the military that I felt like my civilian life, so to speak, would never happen.
Okay.
When I transitioned out, it was very difficult. I transitioned out. I went to work for a company in Pensacola called the Studio Group, one of the greatest healthcare coaching organizations you'll find. It was simply in healthcare, just like I had spent the last 20 years in the military. I began to coach and to do some speaking, to leader development, and then I transitioned into being a full-time speaker in about 2016. And this was my full-time job, was to travel the country, speak to audiences, do leader development. I mean, I've been in almost 300 organizations, 30,000 people. I'm just finally living the experience that I had always dreamed of. My 30 years I waited to get to this point in my career, and here I am at the height of it and loving every minute of it. Everything that I had learned and gained and really God had poured into me over the past 25 years previous to that was being put out there and impacting people's lives. It was wonderful, terrific. But that transition to get there was difficult.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how did you go from that to Leadership 10?
So that's one of those moments where you go, okay, at some point in time, 2018, 19, 20, that time period, I'm probably feeling inside myself that, I think I could maybe do this on my own, but it's that stepping away from a secure environment that's very hard. You know that you went from full-time ministry
Correct.
into
Starting
your own job, right?
Exactly.
Your own whole nother career. And that's a huge leap of faith. That's not easy for most people. It's the rare person who goes, God's called me to do this. I'm going to step away from this and move forward. Typically it's, I'm going to dabble a little bit into this over here, see how it works. And I'll maybe transition that way over a period of time. Didn't happen for me.
Okay.
2020, all speaking ended, a lot of travel ended during that time, the first days of, first few months of 2020. And all of a sudden the company called me one day and said, Mark, we're going to downsize, and we're going to basically eliminate the entire speaking division. Not everybody, but just about everybody. There's 140 people total within the company, and many of those in the division that I was in. And so I had a call in October of 2020 that said, you don't have a job anymore as of December 1st. And that was one of those gut-wrenching moments, like somebody had just hit me. I'm in the prime of my career, something I've waited 30 years to do, and all of a sudden it's taken in that short period of time.
So the lockdown was really hard for you. The COVID landscape was tough for you just because what you were offering this company, you can no longer do. You're not doing any speaking. In fact, they even called you for the layoff.
Yes. So it's we were doing some virtual stuff, and there was a little bit of that going on,
Okay.
but nobody was really looking for any kind of leader development. Everybody was so focused on just surviving that went away. And not that it hasn't come back in time. And I'm sure that they're still not traveling the way I was then or speaking as many places just because it hasn't quite come back to that. But Leadership 10 happened because two colleagues of mine, Diane Guthmuller and Rob Schieffer, and I started this company called Leadership 10.
Great
actually,
people. I love both of those
you
guys.
do. I know.
They're
you know
awesome.
them well.
Yeah.
And we started the company actually prior to my being let go from Studio Group, as just a way for us to fund some of the stuff we were doing locally. We had started coaching young professionals locally. We did it for free.
It's awesome.
We paid out of our own pocket for the things that we needed to do, and we were investing in and impacting people, young people in the Northwest Florida, the Panhandle area. So when this happened and we had already formed the company just as kind of a way for us to raise enough or to do a little bit of business so we could fund the things that we needed to do, we said, hey, how about I jump into this thing full time and start to make it a career? And that's where it's gone now in the last year and a half.
So you're helping young leaders, right?
Well, so in our free program that we do, and we do this twice a year here locally, we meet in Niceville. We allow up from 6 to 12 young professionals to come in, and we coach them, and we do leader development with them for 2 semesters a year, January to April, August to November. That's free. The other side of it is the business side, and that's all people, CEOs, managers, leaders, entrepreneurs, real estate agents that we're coaching, lots of different varieties. And this all comes to what God has really called us to do, is to affect what we call the 7 mountains of culture. And the
seven
mountains of culture. So this is something that dates way back to actually the mid 70s, this term, the 7 mountains of culture, or 7, environments within our world. And they are really this. They are simply religion, family, business, government, media, arts and entertainment, and education. And the impact of that is, if you think about those elements, if you think about what's going on in our world right now, those elements are strong. And they are very, especially arts and entertainment, media, government. Oh, yeah. Very strong.
Sure.
The way religion has shifted over the last several years to away from God in many institutions, splits in churches because of the institutional things that government, media, and arts and entertainment have pushed. And then what's happening in our education system with our children,
sure,
all the way down to kindergarten. Now, we're having this conversation all the time here
Absolutely.
in the state of Florida because of the indoctrination rather than education of our children. And so what we've decided is we want to be able to impact all of those 7 mountains in any way that we can. So all industries, all leadership within those industries, we want to be able to provide leader development and coaching so that we can begin to have impact and influence toward godly things in our culture.
I love that. And it seems like in my life that some mountains are higher than the others, And,
they're called mountains for a reason, right? And
I got Mount Everest over here.
Right. Mount Everest, Mount McKinley. We got some, Denali. We got all these big mountains that are pretty big. Yeah. And some of them are formidable. I mean, sure. There's actually, this is a statistic that, one of those crazy things that I just happen to know. There's been more people that have run the mile faster than 4 minutes. There's actually been less people than have climbed Mount Everest. There's 3,000 people have climbed Mount Everest.
That's it? Only 3,000?
Only 3,000 people, right?
Holy cow.
Yeah. So you think Mount Everest is the pinnacle of the world, right?
Sure.
So, okay, how many of those, which one of those mountains I just mentioned is Mount Everest? I'd probably call it governor and media right now.
Yeah, it feels like
big,
one of those two.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas we might look at family or religion as maybe a lesser mountain, more of the Rocky Mountains versus the Himalayas or something.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is, how do we effectively go after those mountains and reclaim them for the kingdom of God? And I don't mean reclaim in the sense of some kind of taking over. I mean, how do we have influence and bring people back to the godliness of and righteousness that we know is the right way for us to govern in all those areas?
Before we move on, how do we find you? Where do Leadership 10, where can we find that? Do you guys have a website or?
Yeah, so we do. So it's leadership10.org, and the 10 is actually spelled out TEN. So It's not the number 10, it's spelled out TEN, leadership10.org. You can find us on our website. You can also email us at info at leadership10.org as well. You can get a hold of any one of us. And really, as what God has brought me from in this, being let go from one company and having to start another, it's not been an easy road by any means. Okay. I mean, when you change careers, you transition like that, whether it's suddenly or even gradually, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different ways to go about doing that. And God has really shown me ways to move forward and not continually look back at what I could have had or what once was. If that makes sense.
What about everybody out there who's listening that they're not necessarily in a management position? They're not a CEO. They're not an officer. What does that look like? Can you lead not in a management position? And so what does that look like? Because most of us are not.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that Whataburger there that I can see probably only has one manager.
Yeah.
Everybody else is a fry cook or a cashier.
Right.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So it's called leading from the middle, right? Or even leading from the bottom. And there's I think there's a lot of, books and people out there who teach this in this sense. But leading from the middle is really this. It's, am I pushing up to my leaders what needs to happen? And am I pulling the people below me up with me? And in a very positive way, meaning if you're my leader, and I am not the official manager, director, person in the organization, how do I help lead? I help lead by helping you navigate the vision. I go to you and I say, all right, Nate, I know you got a lot of things going on and I want to help us get to the vision of whatever our goal is, whatever the mission of our organization. What can I do for you? What can I take from you that will help you be more effective as a leader? The other side of that is for you as a leader to look at me and go, okay, I'm not in a leadership position, but what can you do to help me grow? Because someday maybe I will be in that leadership position. Good. So everything that you're doing as a leader to help the people around you and people that work around you is going to help them navigate so maybe someday they can be in that leadership. That's where I go from that. You don't have to step up. you can simply step into because you have poured in and impacted and influenced enough the people around you, created value in them that they grow and they're ready to lead even from the middle.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah.
You just said some powerful statements there, especially like adding value and influencing people. I feel like we can do that. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, you know, you may be looking at it going like, well, I have no leader. No, you absolutely are a leader.
Yeah, you
absolutely are a leader. You're the greatest leader. You know?
Yes.
You know, and you know, I just think that so often we are like waiting until this one thing happens to begin leadership, or it's almost like, you know, well, when I have more money, then I'm going to start investing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That makes no sense.
Right. Correct.
But we think that way,
yes,
you know,
we do.
and you know, there's been times in my life where I have felt like, oh, I can't put money into that right now. We don't have enough. No, that's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Correct.
And so for leadership, like, well, once I get a management position, then I'll start.
Right.
You won't.
Right.
You won't.
And that's exactly what I've coached for the last 25 years is we need to start now as you're not in a leadership position, but someday you will be. So what are you doing to prepare yourself to be there? You said a great thing, you know, is you know, you're a stay-at-home mom. My wife, Michelle, fortunately was able to stay home raising our children all those years. And talk about an influence, talk about a leader. I mean, my kids will tell you hand over fist that she is the top leader in the home versus me, in the sense of she is the one that influenced them the most in their Christian walk, and all of them walk with God very closely today, and are strong leaders in their own right. They'll tell you that I was their leadership coach, but they'll definitely tell you that mom was the person who influenced and impacted. Sure. Why? Because she's leading at the home. But you said this thing about investing, and there's a time you have to start as soon as you possibly can. Whether it's 10 cents out of, you know, every dollar that you get, you start investing, you start saving. Sure. Whether it be, you know, reading a little bit here or there. I'm coaching one person right now who I just said, all right, we're just going to do an article once every couple of weeks. And it's just a simple article. It's just something, and you're going to take a few bits and pieces from that and you're going to apply it to your leadership life. Okay. It doesn't have to be this, you know, I'm in the middle of a book right now called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's like 440 pages. I mean, it's going to take me months to read through this book, but I do a chapter at a time and I'm just gaining a little bit. You don't have to read a 400-page book. You can simply just start with the next article that you get out of Harvard Business Review or some other leadership magazine. That was actually going to be my very next question. It was just, you know, what can we, if somebody, maybe if they're out there and they just feel stuck, you know, and not sure, what can they do to start gaining some traction and becoming a leader and becoming somebody that can influence and and someone that can empower others? Like, what can I be to, you know, read a little bit, right? You wake up early. Give us some let's get practical for a second here. Yes. What can I do? So getting stuck is that's a great phrase because, you know, in this last year and a half that I've made this great transition and felt stuck several times in that period because it's almost like I get some momentum and I think we're going and all of a sudden I feel stuck. And I literally, this is no kidding, three nights this week in a row I've had these dreams and I really believe God speaks to us in dreams. And interpreting the dreams is not always the easiest thing. Some of them are very simple, but some of them are very complex and symbolic. But these dreams, God has showed me where I have moved along and I've tried to do something and I keep doing it the same way, kind of expecting a different result. And, and in one of my dreams, I'm literally stuck and I'm trying to go up a staircase and I cannot move. It's like my feet are encased in cement. And in other parts of the dream, God really revealed to me how I cannot rerun this whole thing in my mind of how things used to be. And I want to play this rerun. And I go, oh, I really liked it when this was happening. I wish it would happen like that again. And God's like, no, I'm doing something new. Yeah. If you're doing something new, you can't look back at the way it was before. Right. You know, you can learn lessons from looking back. But, you know, Jesus said, put your hand to the plow and don't look back. Yeah. So often we live in the past. We do, right? Or we keep looking back thinking, oh, am I going the right direction? And you don't know you're going the right direction unless you're looking forward. Sure. And every time, you ever been driving on the road and every time you tend to like look out the mirror and you're looking at something on one side or the other, or looking back at your kids in the back seat or something, all of a sudden you veer off the road or you go the wrong direction. Sure. Same thing with the hand of the plow. We can't have both hands on the plow and look back at the same time. If we do, we're never going to go on the straight path that we need to be on, right? And so Jesus is saying that. He's saying, okay, you're stuck. Okay, we need to move forward. And moving forward is getting that plow, putting it in the ground, hooking up the horse or the tractor or whatever it is that you're plowing with and moving forward and not looking back. Hard to do. Wow. And I'm saying that as somebody who in the last year and a half has looked back many times wishing my life was as it used to be, how much I enjoyed it, but realizing that what God's got ahead of me, so much better. Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
What would you say to a young leader? Somebody out there that's, let's just say, under 25, that really has a passion for leadership. Maybe they want to start a company. What kind of early encouragement would you give these guys?
I'd say a couple of things. Don't get involved in leadership style. Don't figure out what kind of style you have or what, all those. There's lots of different leadership styles, and many of them are situational. So it's not necessarily something that we have to say, here's the way you need to lead. Just begin to learn what leadership really is. How do you lead yourself? Even when we take in new organizations, we start to coach them. One of the very first exercises we do is a values exercise where we teach them, what are their core values? Who are they as a person? How are they going to lead? My core value, my number one core value is honor. So everything I do in leadership, everything I do in business is all about honor. What does that look like? And I have to define that, and I have to because I lead that way. So find out what those things are. Find out how to lead yourself so that you can better lead others. And then just begin to take bits and pieces at a time. Like I said, an article here, a chapter in a book here, learning the things that you need to learn, and then apply those things where you are. So again, if you're not the leader in the organization and you want to be someday, how can you lead others? I learned something about, how to communicate this, how a leader should communicate. I'm going to start communicating with the people around me that way so that eventually that's going to be my normal way of communicating.
Sure.
I get in the leadership position, I'm ready to go.
Sure. Which is, I think, that early, the fathers of the faith in the early days, I think that was that follow me as I follow Christ thing. It's really, they were like, I'm not going to sit here and drill into you the ways that you need to be a leader or a disciple. This is the way I do it. And this is and I am following, follow me as I follow Christ, and they implement their own way, but they are following him as the leader. And I think that you're right. We can pick up any leadership book and read it. And it may work for a season, but it may not necessarily be us or our way. I know for a fact, Mark, just knowing you and your personality, that I will probably lead a little differently. But what I'd like to know is that we can still have the same, either the 7 mountains, that we're still impacting culture, we're still influencing people, but it may look a little different, and I think that's okay.
It is. Absolutely. I mean, if it looked the same, what fun would that be?
Right.
Again, you go back to the military thing is, in the military, where there's very uniform ways of doing things, but that doesn't take away the personality and the behavioral style of the people who are in leadership.
Wow.
Right. So it has to be somewhat different. If it's not, then we're just a bunch of robotic people following along. And what good does that do in our lives? Right. How are we going to affect people really that way?
Gotcha. And what would you say to somebody that's been in a leadership position for a long time, but going back to that feeling stuck thing, maybe they're just kind of feeling like, well, I guess I'm kind of on my way out, maybe, or maybe it's my time to throw in the towel. What would you say to somebody like that?
I think as a leader, you never stop leading. I think if you're truly heart and passion is to lead people and impact people, you never stop leading. I don't mean, and if I'm retired and all I'm doing is playing golf 4 days a week, I'm going to lead out on the golf course. I'm gonna find somebody I can impact, whether it be the caddy, the people in the shop where you're getting your clubs or your balls, whatever that is. I'm going to lead those people. I'm going to impact them in some way. I'm going to influence them in some way. But I think it's also this is am I finding ways to continually impact people around me? All those things that, here I am now, 56 years old. I've gained all of this knowledge and all of this skill for the last, and even if I was able to retire right now and had all the finances that I need, would I stop doing what I do? No. I love what I do. I love coaching. I love leading. I love impacting people's lives. So I'm going to continue to do this until I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
I love that.
And whether I'm in a position to do that or not, I'm on an airplane and the person next to me and I have an opportunity to impact them, why would I not do that?
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's neat with servant leadership is just having this thought of what can I do that's outside of myself and growing me or my vision or my company or whatever. What can I do for others today? And one of my favorite things as a worship leader is to look up on the platform and see a guy or girl leading worship that I was like, that's cool. I had a part in that. Like, you know what I mean? I led them for maybe a couple of years, and to just see them, that's honestly more fulfilling than if I had got up there and done it myself.
Yes.
To see them doing that.
Yes.
And to me, I'm like, that's a perfect picture of leadership.
Yes. When people are modeling what you've coached them or what you've shown them is the right way to do things, to be able to see somebody in a position that you help them get to, I think is really rewarding. And it is about serving them, right? The greatest leader needs to serve the people around them. And I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the term servant leadership. I'm not by any means against it. I think everybody wants to be a servant servant leader until they get treated like a servant. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I think this is the right thing.
Sure.
But it's that ability to be humble, right? Humility is probably the number one quality in any leader. Somebody who doesn't come in thinking they know everything, somebody who isn't arrogant about things, somebody who's not narcissistic, somebody who's not focused on themselves, but somebody who truly is there to impact the people around them, lead them to a greater vision. Our job as leaders, I think, is to help people make history. And what does that look like? And how do we help them make history and not just
helping people make history?
Help people make history.
Wow.
Why would we not? Why would we not shoot for everything we can to invest in people and value people so much that they create and make history? And we're just a part of that. We don't even have to have our name in the lights on that. They just make history. You know, it's the degree to which you invest in people is the degree to which you value them. And so the more we invest in people, the more we value. And the more we value, the greater their impact is going to be in the world. Think about, you talked about investing earlier or saving. You know, I invest in things because I believe they're going to create value. They're going to become more value. I invest in crypto because I think it's going to create value. I invest in certain stocks because I think they're going to create value. The same thing with people. Why would I not invest my time in the people around me so that they can create the greatest value for the organization and become the very best people they can?
I love that.
Yeah.
I was almost like, rather than servant leader, it should be called like an investing leader or something. Well, because when you think about it, I mean, like Jesus, you know, I know that Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve. But I don't necessarily think that's the same way we think of being. I mean, but God also says you're no longer a servant. You're my child. Yeah. So I think that there's a different picture of like what he meant by that, and investing into someone, and then to just be. When we picture servant, we think mopping.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or I'm cleaning something like that. No, that has nothing to do with it.
Right.
I am no longer just thinking about myself in this equation.
Right.
I'm going to be the leader here, but I'm honestly maybe even more focused about the people under me than about what I want and what I desire from this.
Yes. And so serving is many different facets to that. You're right. It's not that we don't have to just serve in the church either. Serving is serving anywhere we are at any time. But serving is you're right. It's not necessarily that I cleaned up something for you because that, you know, we have that picture of a mop in our hand. It's serving is what is it I can invest in you? That's serving you. That's helping you create value, right? It's helping you become something that you're already, maybe you're not. And I think people get caught up in this idea of Jesus in the vision of how he did things and realize that how he did things is not necessarily how we have to do things. It's an example of what this looks like, right? When Jesus said, you know, pray in this manner or pray like this, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It doesn't mean we have to repeat those words and pray exactly like that.
That's the only prayer that we can, that's the only prayer for now.
And not that there's anything wrong with that prayer, but it's pray in this type of a way. This is an example. You don't have to pray these exact words. So he's saying, I'm going to serve like this. You don't have to do it exactly like this. Just keep in mind, this is what servanthood looks like, right? That's being a servant leader.
Wow. That's powerful, Mark. Yeah. Wow. Very cool, man. Well, listen, we want to encourage listeners that, well, first of all, I would love everybody out there listening to go to leadership10.org. Look at their services there. If you're wanting to grow and, you know, in your leadership, you want to go to the next level and looking for an opportunity to influence and inspire other people around you, I think you definitely need to go to that website, leadership10.org. Am I saying it right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, TEN, Leadership10. And then go on Amazon, pick up a copy of Mark's book, Set Up, which is an awesome leadership tip for your success. So, but again, we just want to encourage everybody out there to please, the biggest thing is get in the Bible, get in the Word of God, pick up a Bible, get in the Bible app, whatever it looks like. And it's going to speak to you and encourage you and grow you as a leader and as a man or woman of Christ. And then find a local church, join a small group. All these things are important. And we'd love to hear your story. So you can reach out to us at contact@destinyradio.live. Mark, any last thoughts, man? Anything to leave, any nuggets?
I have a whole bunch of them that come through my mind, right? But I mean, it's just like I could just start spouting them all off. For me, it's this is whatever you can do it. Teddy Roosevelt said this: do what you can with what you have where you are. And meaning that it doesn't matter at what level you're at in an organization, what level you're at in life, what your age is. You know, we look at Jeremiah, who said, don't look down on my youth, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what age, what stage you're at in your career. You're 70 years old and you're winding up your career as a CEO somewhere. Whatever that is, continue to do what you can to impact the people around you. Continue to use the abilities and the creativity that God's given you. You know, I say it like this: ability is increased by use, right? We got to continually grow. That's why God said, to much is given, much is required. I've given you this. I'm going to continue to give you more if you continue to use it. But then he said, and if you don't use what I've given you, you're going to lose it.
Wow.
And that doesn't matter if you're 70 years old and you're retired and you think I just want to play golf.
That's it.
God has given you ability and talent and skill and knowledge that we have to continually share until the day we reach heaven.
Amen. Yeah. And I think we as Christians and as followers of Christ, we need to be the one setting the culture for those 7 mountains and not letting somebody else do it. Correct. Pick one of them even. Yep. Maybe you're already in education. Maybe you're already in the media. Maybe you're already in some kind of arts and entertainment. Pick that and impact and influence that mountain. For us, it's the whole 7 mountains. We've just decided to adopt it all and go after it all. But pick that one that you're in or that one that God leads you toward and do something that's going to change the world and make history. Climb that mountain.
Amen.
I love it. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you being here, brother.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks
awesome,
so much,
man.
Nate. Good to see you.
You've been listening to Road to Redemption, sharing powerful life testimonies, giving hope to those on their own road to redemption. If you have any comments or questions, we would love to connect with you. You can reach out to us at destinyradio.live. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week on Road to Redemption.